Right, but now we have 15 past, so I think that we could practically start.
We will start. Yes. So it's my great pleasure to say a warm welcome to, of course, our guest today, Åsa Stjerna, but also a warm welcome to all of you who are attending this session, this seminar with the Posthumanities Hub. My name is Cecilia Åsberg, and I'm a professor at Linköping University. And together with my team here, Marietta Radomska and Jana Holmstedt, we will guide you through a really exciting session today. But I would like now to draw your attention to that this session is being recorded. You kind of knew that already as you signed up for this. And I would also like to draw your attention to that our next Posthumanities Hub session is on the 22nd of April, when we will have an AI panel together with Lina Ram and Adam and other people who will be joining us. And we think that would be really exciting. So note down 22nd of April in your calendars. So once again, a warm welcome to you all to this Posthumanities Hub seminar with Åsa Stjerna on sonic visions of the Arctic. And I would like to give the microphone now to Jana to introduce our esteemed guest.
I'll make a very short introduction. We're very happy to have you here, Åsa. You're an artist and researcher, and you've been working for a very long time with sound installations, site-specific installations, often in public spaces, drawing attention to multi-layered narratives and conditions of these places. So you use sound and listening as well as your artistic mode of exploration, and exploring sound's potential to make these embedded conditions and underlying narratives perceivable. And in your artistic research, you've been specifically interested in exploring the contemporary conditions of sonic situated practices and its ability of being transformative, asking questions like what it actually means to make a difference in the era of Anthropocene and advanced capitalism. And guided by methodologies of feminism and ecosophy and posthumanism, you propose an understanding of site specificity as an aesthetic, ethical practice and engagement. And also represents the professorship sound art at Hochschule für Bildende Künste in Braunschweig in Germany. And with that, I leave the word to Marietta, who will just tell us how this session is going to be organized.
Right, thank you so much, Jana. So I shall say that the session goes as follows. We have 1 hour for presentation from Åsa, and after that we'll have 10 minutes comfort break, and then the Q&A chaired by Cecilia and myself. Also, I think a little bit more instructions on Q&A will come later. But I mean, if you have any thoughts or already questions or kind of points that you would like to raise, I mean, feel free to type them in the chat already during the talk if that's the need. Right, so I mean, then, you know, I'm passing the baton directly to Åsa, and please feel free to share your screen, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marietta, Cecilia, and Jana. I think it's wonderful to be here. I found that the Posthumanities Hub is an absolutely vibrant and exciting environment for studies in related or environmental and all kind of contemporary issues related to posthumanist perspectives. And I'm really happy to be here today. So I'm going to start to do the procedure. I hope it will work. So here we are. Did you hear what I say? Because I think I muted myself.
Exactly. So, I think that you involuntarily muted yourself there for just a few seconds. So maybe just repeat that you're going to share.
Yeah, but you heard that I found it thrilling to be here at least. Not even that.
And we find it super thrilling to have you here. So
yeah, so now I think I'm here in the moment of, let's see where, this is very odd. There, and share. So I think this show you what you should see now is a text with the sonic visions of the Arctic, which I'm going to tell you a bit about today. My postdoctoral research project that I started last year, and due to Corona, we all know how that went. But I'm gonna give you some glimpses into my visions about what sound as a artistic or research practice can contribute to when it comes to critical ideas about the Arctic. And I've been specifically interested in how can sound mediate information about global relevance about the Arctic, and how can this information be transformed into embodied sonic experience in public space? And what I basically is doing in this project is that I'm following a research team, the glaciologist Nina Kirchner at Stockholm University, and her research on glaciers, and also how she uses sonic technology to reveal issues about the global climate warming. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how I came to this research project and my kind of conceptual thematic point of departure. But I'm going to start to share a little snippet from Sulitelma, where the first exploration took place. And this little snippet in somehow, I would say, directly to connect to what you said last seminar, Jana, the idea about giving back something, giving the ear back something to the eye, and the deviation about what you can reveal through the sonic, what is not possible with the visual. This is actually the same environment explored through two different scientific technologies. On the one hand, using hydrophones in the glacier of Sulitelma up in the north of Sweden, and at the same time trying to use a GoPro camera, a special built, constructed for this event. What you actually don't see, you can definitely hear. So I don't know how much you heard from it. Depends on what kind of earphones and devices you had, but you can hear a clearly acoustic with the perspective. It's something that I found extremely important, the relation between the visual, the relation between the sonic, and in what way, different way they express and proposes perspectives on of course, in many years, I would say, because it feels so odd when you say that I'm cooperating with my partner and husband too. So, which could be a topic for another seminar, how you deal with the relations and research. But I'm not going to do that specifically today. But my interest has been how you can specifically explore things through underwater technologies and how this can reveal perspectives on the oceanic activities connected to the climate crisis. And the left picture shows work that I did in Norway almost 10 years ago, which I will talk a little bit more about in a few moments. Currents. A second project is called Mare Balticum, that I've been specifically interested in how underwater technology visualizes the underwater traffic, or the vessels, the underwater anthropogenic soundscape, or how sound is produced and affects the underwater environment. Another work, that's the third picture, is a subaqua, where I've been specifically through hydrophone technology using, exploring the harbor of Hamburg. And the fourth picture shows a glimpse of the excursion up, or exploration up in the Sulitelma. So there's a little different perspectives on how I've been working. And of course, there's a lot of people today working with and in the area of acoustic ecology, or working with sound and underwater sound, or related to environmental issues. And one can of course ask, do we really need another artist dealing with this? There's so many already out there. And I think it's up to you, or to everyone, to pose that question and give an answer. But my specific interest, and which also kind of is the starting point for the project of Sonic Visions of the Arctic, is that a kind of very critical approach to sound technology in itself. It's very often, these are very often pictures that we see that promote the artistic identity. I would say this is absolutely nothing against Jonna Windre and Lea Barkley or Jakob Kierkegaard, just having said that. But it kind of states technology as a tool to reveal truth, to reveal documentary authenticity. And coming back to you again, Jonna, you said in the previous seminar last time that it's a kind of trophy that you go out and get, and it's like a hunt for reveal the truth. So I think this is really spot on, and my interest in how I'm interested to explore the potential, or the capacity, or the embedded potentiality in sonic technology from a very critical angle. I'm coming back to, in order to do that, to kind of discuss the idea of my criticality, or my approach, which very much relates to a more immanence theoretical, or shall we call it immanence philosophical approach to technology, or situated sonic practice, goes directly back to my own practice, artistic practice. And I've been working specifically doing specifically, as Jonna mentioned in the introduction, with sound as an artistic practice, or site specificity as a practice to explore spaces and places more there are narratives, or the often very embedded narratives and so on, through the means of sound. I've been doing around, I don't know if it's 30 long-term projects, which compasses lots of different spatial situations, spanning from churchyards to the ocean as a public space, or libraries, a variety of different spatial circumstances. Also very often been interested in the more historical, social, or political and poetic phenomena connected to a place. And I felt that from my perspective, it's very much a daily practice that connects to the kind of very a practice that really is an experimental practice. It is, should we call it? They explore the specific unique condition, and it's very long-term processes where you really engage with the agencies or the different interrelational agencies within a specific moment, and you have to deal with this very concretely on site. This picture shows my temporary office at the churchyard in a work that I did in Braunschweig. A rain that suddenly comes, and you have to renegotiate the situation, the artistic situation, according to the place, the specific situations. In this case, how to deal with 1,000-meter cables. Is it at all ethical, okay, to do this, and how do we do that in that case? So it's engagement that really spans the human, the more than human, with technology, with the social specificity in the place, and of course the ideological issues related to a place. It's also very transformative practice in a very concrete meaning. When I talk about how can sound actually transform the experience of a place, it's not only about that you insert sound in a space, it's really about how you can understand that the sonic work, the sound work, is a very complex process, that spans between interrelational agencies. So between loudspeaker cable, between how you really deal with this, as you can see in this picture, it's a panel in the Oslo Opera. How can you transform this to a kind of a ground for installing the cable? So it's really about always not take it for granted what it is, but also what the site together with the vision can become in that sense. Yeah, this is also another work that I've been doing. It's a permanent installation at the Swedish Institute in Paris, which deals with the history of the site. And in this case, it turned out that the well's stone wall gave a very clear reverb. So in that sense, you can say that the well itself had a very strong agency when working with the sound. I installed a loudspeaker in this well. So it's really about not trying to erase the specificities of the place, but really be in a constant relation with the specific agencies of that site. And this might not be a very big surprise for you who actually work with site specificity as a practice, but as from my perspective as a artist and my experiences of being an artist, it's very much about another approach to sound or sound art, or I would say public art in general, that you have a clear idea of what a spatial context, and that it should be more or less filled with the content. And I take this just as an example. This is in Swedish, where it's a kind of open call for 3 new public artworks, where the idea is maybe there's already an idea of where the sound works should be in the launch, where people or ill sick persons are waiting, and what they are wanting is a smooth, nice, decent sound art, which also should have a kind of relaxing attitude. So in this sense, I would say the idea of sound as an artistic experimental practice, where you deal with the specificities on site, clashes with a kind of expected idea of how sound as a practical practice or a critical practice works. This is just one example. And In my PhD that I finished a couple of years ago, which is called Before Sound, Transversal Processes in Site-Specific Sonic Practice, I specifically deals with this from a critical point of view. And of course, I don't know, I like this sentence from Deleuze and Guattari. I promise I will come back to the Arctic, but it will take around 20 minutes. So don't worry, don't go asleep. But this kind of what you not have to do in order to produce a new sound, kind of materialize the whole complex, transversal, interrelational process of working with sound. And this is not, of course, not only with sound, it's about all forms or formats of production. But I'm talking from the perspective of the sonic practitioner. And here is a cat, by the way, who happened to stumble to walk by when I took the picture, but that's another story. So what my interest in working and thinking alongside specifically sound technology, but also the spatial, its spatial materialization, the site-specific sonic practice, and is to understand it beyond form, like a simplified forms of what I refer to as forms of representation. We need to think, we need to exceed an idea of spatial practices as a container. Is a kind of, what do we call it, a Cartesian container that you fills with the content, but rather acknowledge the transversal practice to understand its interrelational implications all through the process. And one of the initial parts of being an art practitioner working with site specificity is the mapping process, the exploration of the site, which I call mapping the affective lines. It's not only about finding a specific spot and just put up your speakers. It's about actually dealing with the complexity, dealing with the site as an assemblage of transversal relation that constantly differs, changes according to its human, non-human, technological, social, etc. circumstances. Just as a churchyard, which I had suddenly, there was a rain which made me have to rethink the way I should install speakers. So in that sense, it's also about establishing new connection, or what I call establishing new connection, which relates to the very gestaltningsfasen, which I really never know how to translate into English, because to give gestalt, or give the body to the work, the very aesthetical approaches to the work. Again, it's not just inserting a speaker, but thinking in terms of the virtualities or the possible embedded, not yet actualized possibilities that is inherent in a site, and how, for instance, a loudspeaker cable forms a specific alliance with the architecture of the Oslo Opera, etc., etc. And of course, one of the most important thing is the artist subjects itself. It's not about being an autonomous art subject. It's about always being in relation to, and never think that you come as a subject, as an artist, and just do something. It's always being situated and embedded as part of a context. And when Janna introduced me in the beginning of this seminar, she said that I'm interested to understand site specificity as an ethical, aesthetical practice. And that is in this very sense that I'm interested in to explore the practice from this embedded, non-autonomous perspective. And how, for instance, a loudspeaker cable, but also a hydrophone or underwater microphones are never neutral, but also have their agency in a artistic process. And I'm gonna give you an example of this and how I worked with this and how this sparked my interest later on in the sonic visions of the Arctic process. And this is a very old work. I always promise myself that this should be the last time I show it because it's 10 years now. But for some reason, it often fits so well to the discussion. So I'm going to show you, give you a documentation of a work that I did in the opera, Norway, Oslo Opera, where I specifically wanted to transform the global warning into a sonic artistic experience. And it's about sonification as a artistic process. So 4 minutes. Okay. Working with sonification, for some of you it's obvious, for others it's a new term, but it's quite often used in artistic practices with sound, specifically dealing with global issues or climate issues. People are working with statistics or data sets that scientists produce and specifically transform this into an audible experience. And if we look at it in on a more, shall we call it, scientific level, or the more definition of sonification, it is traditionally defined as a subtype of the broader category of auditory display, which uses non-speech audio material to represent information. And this is very much about how people think that, okay, this work or this thing represents this and this data. And something that we as artists also often deal with. And I think this directly connect to what Janna coined so wonderful last time. I mention it again, the trophy of the documentary practice. I don't know if this is the correct version, but I think that the sense is correct, that we kind of, as an artist, there is a tendency to not take into the complex transversal relation that this kind of transformation process actually deal with, and not take that into consideration. So I've been specifically working with this, and I think that this is a really, really big problem with established traditions of representation in artistic sonification. There is a kind of idea more, there's still, shall we call it, a more semiotic idea of sonification, that it represents, that it's a kind of almost an indexial theory, that there is this Peirce theory that you can point to a specific truth or a specific set of authenticity facts, and I would really emphasize and say that I'm not a post-structuralist in that sense, or a relativist. It's not about that. It's about not wanting to acknowledge the complexity in the process. And this has not only with the artistic practices to do. I would say this is also goes directly hand in hand also with the scientific approach to sonification, and that one does not want to acknowledge the site-specific site-specific issues, which are always raised throughout the process of transforming data into sound, or as well as other things. So if we look at the work that I did, what happened actually here on the, I don't think you can see my arrow, so on the left upper picture, you can see the spot where the researchers were working and collecting data, which deals with the global warming. And I am using part of this data, pipes it into a computer at the Faroe Island, which goes over the Stockholm University, arrives at the Oslo Opera, and is transformed to some kind of sonic texture. And this is, of course, a artistic. There is artistic tendencies in this, which involves a lot of different negotiations, from the very opera situation to itself, but also to the very ideas of using technology again. What kind of technologies should be used, and how do they impact on the original so-called data, and the relation to the software programmer. I'm not doing this. This is far too complex process for me to program. So I need to take in another programmer, which of course has its specific aesthetical agencies as well. And all of this melts down to the very work, for not saying the very spatial conditions. And what I did as part of my PhD was basically trying to map the circumstances or the assemblage that actually together constitute the sound work currents. And one, you could see it as a mere sonification, but if you look at the agencies, so my idea was trying to map this. It spans from the global warming itself to the very Arctic, the Gulf Stream. I used the transatlantic telecom cable. The Faroe Telecom was involved in order to use the used data. The Department of Meteorology and the scientific research projects involving transmission of real-time data to Stockholm University. There is analysis issues, technical development and science questions, and as well as the more architectural issues on site, producer, the Oslo Opera House, visitors, social activities. This is schizoanalysis in practice. It never ends, right? So it's really complicated, and I could continue now for three weeks. And when you press the button and open Zoom, I still remains to kind of talk about the different agencies. But this is just so you can see my interest in actually the embedded circumstances and how that really affects the work in the end. And if you want to have a close reading, you can always read my dissertation, which you can find online, because I don't have time to go into what I actually found. But this is one of the really crucial issues that sparked my interest for the now very, very famous sonic visions of the Arctic that I will in 10 minutes start to talk about. So it's about a very, very, what I would say, simplified idea of authenticity, and also about representations when it comes to documentary practices in art. The other one comes from another project that I did in 2015, also with Peter, called Mare Balticum, which basically was a huge research program involving 6 different nations, measuring the underwater soundscape levels and how it is affected by anthropogenic or human activities, specifically dealing with the vessels or boat traffic, but also windmills and all these kind of activities. So this is actually a picture in how the Baltic looks like in the evening. I think it was made in 2016 or so. It's almost a kind of autobahn of activities, and this is a visualization of that. So this is what the project did. They basically, we can skip that. See if I can come back. There we are. We basically dropped down 38 different hydrophones in the Baltic, which was for exactly 1 year synchronized. So this means that all the clocks in these hydrophones were synchronized. So you could actually create a picture of the Baltic, how it sounds in one moment. And somehow I was participating as an artistic contribution to the whole project, because it was EU financed, and this means that you need to put up information sheets about what you are doing. It's like if you're renovating a forest, what do you say, restore a forest or something like that. You might sometimes see that there is this kind of poster with this was organized or financed by EU, but as this is not possible when it's a whole ocean, we came up with a splendid idea that why not let an artist do work using this terabytes of sonic information to create a moment of Mare Balticum. Because this is the very fact that this is what the BIAS project, the Baltic Sea Underwater Soundscape project, did themselves. They are only doing visualization based of these material. So there's enormous lot of sonic raw material, but it's never listened to. It's only manifested as statistics or as visual graphics. So what you can basically see are different kind of levels. I think, is it decibel levels or so? I don't know, but sound levels in the Baltic. But somewhere in the middle of in a shelter or in a drawing on in a desk in each of this university, there is a enormous bunch of sonic raw data that probably will be wasted, and someone throws away the hard disk in 10 years. So my part of the project was basically to transform this into a sonic experience. We can listen to that. It will take 5 minutes, and then I will continue. Yeah, okay. Okay. Yes. So yeah, this is more. Can skip that. we can skip that too, because I think it shows a similar process. What I want to point out is a similar process, just as the work before currents, all the kind of agencies embedded in the final outcome. But if I come back now, or actually relates to the actual topic of today, which deals with the sonic visions of the Arctic, these are the two main kind of starting point for me. What I found is crucial to continue to investigate from the perspective of the artist researcher. On the one hand, like idealist or forms of representation, how it deals with the authenticity and representation and the documentary material. And secondly, the fact that most scientific research working with sound are not using sound. They're not taking the embedded conditions into considerations, but they are using it with visualizations or statistics. And this is specifically what I've been interested in when starting up the process. It's just in its first phase, and it's intended to span between 2020 to 2023, and it's a cooperation, or it's to get done made with Nina Kirchner at the Wollin Center for Climate Research, who she's also the scientific director for the Wollin Center for Climate Research, and specifically working with the ice-ocean interaction at marine ice margins in order to improve reconstruction of specifically ice sheet complexes and their dynamics, but also very interested in to use acoustic technologies where for instance, calving, where glacier melts as a tool to detect calving, which is not so easy to when you use specifically visual technologies. So the idea is to work with her projects, together with her projects, or not work, but follow her projects or research in the Arctic, and it's specifically to see, okay, here comes the cat, the one I was a bit afraid of popping up, but okay, we'll see how we manage with him. So specifically at Svalbard, the east part of Svalbard, eventually parts of the Greenland, and in the north of Sweden / Norway at the Sulitelma complex. And so far, my idea has been the idea is to follow a few projects to see how the mapping process, how does it work when they actually work with technology, what conditions, what kind of complexities are embedded in this excursion or expedition situation, and also use part of their technology, but also the data, and transform that into artistic works in different different places. So specifically, one project intends to work site specific, very close to the Sulitelma glacier. One of the outcomes is intended to be an artistic intervention somewhere in the south of Sweden, and a third intervention is to be developed somewhere in Germany. So basically to see what kind of, how does the circumstances change in the artistic project when you deal with this complexity, with Anthropocene and this Arctic material, depending on where your geographical perspective as well. Because it's not only about using data and install it somewhere, it's also very much about how will things be developed depending on site-specific circumstances. But it's two parts. The first one is join in, then Nina is collecting data, see how that works, trying to explore some of the embedded conditions that you normally are not part of. and see how those conditions and what way they, how data or information is revealed, and use that data later on. And I think, just as I said, that most, a lot of the information we get about the Arctic and the global changes or the climate crisis, it is specifically obtained or gained by satellites, etc., by visuals. And I think this is a typically common picture, what we see, and how we can very clearly see how things has changed from 1984 to 2012. It's from the NASA. But what I'm interested to specifically explore, and what Nina is using, is passive and active sonar technology. So passive sonar technology is what was used in Mare Balticum, basically underwater microphones that you put down and they, so to speak, listen to their environment. But active sonar is another technology where you can gain information about an environment. It sends signals. It's what you typically hear as this kind of submarine sounds in bad crimes and things like that on television. It sends out the pling, and by that echo it get information back, which gives information about the seabed and different qualities, and also historical information about that space. So it's, in that sense, it relates to the specific technologies as sonification and its representational issue. So these are the two technologies that I'm interested to explore together. And again, in the beginning of this seminar or this presentation, I talked about understanding the artistic practice or site specificity as a transversal practice, the interrelational, ongoing practice with agencies. So also in this project, I'm very interested to explore the transversal or the transversality in the very mapping process, the exploration of what is specific when acoustic and scientific data are gathered. So this is the first part, but of course it's also about my own artistic process which deals with these artistic design issues in relation to a site, and as well as the artist researcher as non-autonomous. And the first and so far only excursion that I had the opportunity to participate in before Corona closed down the whole Svalbard and everything is an attempt 0.5 to map the affective lines up in Sulitelma in the north of Sweden, together with Nina's team. It's basically one of the around 100 glacier in Sweden. It's situated on the border to Norway. I think this is the very border. It's not so far away from Sareks Nationalpark, so you get a kind of idea. And here is a glacier lake that Nina's been exploring for a couple of years. So from my perspective, so far, it's being part of the team, which I found really interesting, because I'm not an ethnographer. I don't even use what one could call as auto-ethnographical hardcore documentation. It's for me being there, doing documentations, taking photos, sound recordings, writing diaries, etc., in a quite what I would myself call extremely unscientific way, but being there and see how things are developing. So I'm just going to give you a few glimpses of that excursion. So It's about how the specific environment, the weather, impacts the research project and the process. In this case, it was actually, it wasn't a storm, it was a hurricane. So it was more than 30 meters speed per second. Which of course delayed the whole process, which in its turn gave a very concrete effect to how you could actually implement the underwater technology. There was only a few days that you have to do a lot of things. This is not a properly kind of finished presentation. It's a project in becoming and ongoing, but to get a few glimpses of the situation up there. It's also about putting up weather stations, taking care of fuel to get what kind of technologies are used and how are not. They are not working due to specific weather situations. It's about setting up a so-called time-lapse camera where you continuously take photos of the glaciers to see what that might reveal in combination with sonic technology. And in this case, there were used two high-quality hydrophones that was supposed to be inserted in the lake for a few days in this case, due to the very, very unstable weather circumstances. And of course, how it's not about being an artist and then getting disturbed by the rain at the churchyard, I mentioned in the beginning of the seminar, but also as a researcher dealing with these agencies on site, and how this in its turn kind of gave effect that the not the loudspeakers, but the hydrophones could only be deployed at a certain part of the sea, which in its turn, of course, absolutely affect the data outcome in the end. So this is where I am right now. And I think this is it. And to get a few moments of silence before we take a break, let's listen to what we could hear at the Sulitelma Glacier Lake. Okay, I think this is it.
Thank you so much, Åsa. Really, really big applause from all of us. Right, so I think that now we could actually take a little break. 10 minutes, I think. But I mean, then, let's be really sharp back at 14:25. And if anyone already has, questions or some ideas, feel free to type them in the chat and we'll take them one by one. Otherwise, you can also just type your name and then, we'll let you speak at your kind of, turn. So thank you so much. And, now 10 minutes for coffee and we are back 14:25. Thank you.
process and more or less saying that don't rely on what you hear or what you see, and in the end I say, okay, let's have a listening to some glimpses from Solitelma, and I think this is the wonderful autistic paradox. And I'm free to, so this is the ambivalence and vaguity with working with documentary material. So when we talk about manipulation, I think we must understand that we take it out from its context at first. And I mean, Jana, you've been working specifically with this, so that's why I'm trying to flirt with you to get you say some smart words. But okay, you prefer to remain silent. We can come back to that later on, maybe. You also about how fast the glacier is calving. No one knows. And that is what Nina actually is about to investigate or research, because it's a kind of tiny glacier, haven't been so much interest in it. I hope this is correct what I'm saying, because I'm not a scientist. She would probably have a very totally different approach to this. So she's been there for 2 or 3 years every summer to make recordings and to do the also time-lapse camera documentary. So no one knows. In 2019, there was there's a lot of calving activity. So they were sure that there was supposed to be some conclusion drawn, but the last summer, there was no calvings almost at all. So it's also this instability, how system works, instability. It needs a long array of kind of material from many years in order to kind of predict these kind of things. And this last question, how long it is, I don't know. I think the glacier is around 1,500 meters, but that's the mountain. And no, they don't really know about the circumstances about this glacier. They don't know if it's connected to the seabed or if it's just like part of the mountain itself. So no one really knows.
Fantastic. We have also a question here from Aquile. Perhaps you, Aquile, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but would you like to tell us your question yourself?
I'm afraid we can't hear you, actually.
We see that you've turned on your sound, but we still can't hear you.
How about now?
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the trick.
So I skipped on all the gratitude talks, but thanks a lot for this really inspiring presentation. I was curious to ask how, because I think in a way you mentioned quite a lot on, I was taking lots of notes, but like on being embedded in a site-specific agencies and sort of accounting for these ambivalences as a researcher and as an artist. But I was wondering if you could say a few more words on how ethics and power relations come to play when we work or when you work with these non-human agencies, because I guess I mean, how do you get a consent from the glacier? You know, like it's like, hey, glacier, I'm going to record you. How do you feel about it? Kind of. It's not like in that way, but I'm curious, how do you like position yourself in your work with these questions? And I would like to know more. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for a really relevant question. I think I would say that in terms of artist, when I work with my complete artistic processes, this has very big impact on what I'm doing. In this case, I'm kind of stalking a research team to see how they are working. So I would say it differs in that way quite a lot, because I'm checking, it's a kind of investigating how they deal with these embedded non-human as well as human agencies. So it differs in this case. And I try to, I don't know, I don't want to blame the research project because it becomes personal, but of course I maybe was wondering, do we really need to rent a helicopter? Can we is it possible to use other ways to go there, etc., etc. But I think this will really be a part of this future research to see how embedded in the scientific process that the relation with non-humans maybe differs a bit. Specifically also dealing with the so-called active sonar technology, that this kind of devices that sends out the ping, and you receive a kind of echo of it. It disturbs the underwater non-human environment very much. And so there is a paradox in this, because you're so curious to map. I mean, there's a huge area in the Arctic that is not mapped. If we talk about sonic technologies, or you have no idea how the seabeds look like. And that's, of course, a huge interest for oil companies and things like that to see, because with this sonar technology and the maps that you can gain by this, you can also see where there might be oil. And at the same time, the curiosity stands in a direct relation to disturbing the environment. I think that's the human paradox. But back to your question, it differs, because now I'm part of someone else's research. Yeah.
Mm. And I think that, it also interestingly sort of, links back to our chit-chatting about, the kind of power of, like, over, for instance, non-humans, if you have pets, or, I mean, to what extent actually, I think, pets come into our lives often because they have already been embedded in that kind of, power relation with humans, as, for like years. I mean, not an individual pet, but I mean, like in general, right? So it's also a question of responsibility and care. And here it's like, we go back to the questions of also colonization, in a sense. So
absolutely,
and the
absolutely.
kind of, violence that happens also both to humans and non-humans, and in that case, very much non-humans. Okay, I mean, sorry for my kind of digressing, but then, we have a next question, and I mean, like we started weirdly. I started to read questions, and then, Cici passed the voice, so maybe I will pass the voice to Caroline, and sorry for this, like, messy practice, but yeah, I mean, if you want to, and I mean, also, like, from the previous people who previously asked questions, if you want to jump in with, follow-up comments, please do. But yes, go on, Caroline.
Okay, thank you. I have my voice here, I think. First of all, thank you so much for a very interesting presentation that was really deep, I think, in various ways. I was thinking about your relationship with sculpture as both process and practice. It's clearly a very situated practice, but you didn't mention how you think about sculpture, and if you at all think about sculpting with sound in some ways, both when you kind of gestalt your piece and also working with the material as such. It would be interesting to hear you reflect upon that.
Thank you very much for a super crucial question. This is the problem when you kind of start with the transversal complexities embedded in a process, because you never come to the aesthetic choices, because everything is about technology, cable, speakers, etc., and so on. But this does, of course, have a huge part. It's really at my heart, which also is, of course, super crucial, how things are composed together. Thinking about how it, but I'm not sure I would call it sculpture, but you can do it, thinking of sound as an entity that you enters in somehow. But definitely do the perceptual questions that in how will you manage to actually transform or renegotiate the specific spatial circumstances through sound. I often work with shall we call it multi-channel multi-channel immersed installations or multi-channel technology. Not that I'm specifically interested in this kind of so-called high level or hi-fi technology. I would prefer not to talk about hi-fi or lo-fi at all. It's different. Well, talking about agencies, it's about what you're interested in, but I have no kind of normative relation to it. But from my perspective, it's about being embedded in sound, and in that sense, the sculptural part of the process is very important. I often, I work or compose the piece on site. So I come with a kind of raw material and a sketch, and then I work out the work on site, or finish the work on site. And it has with everything from panning perspectives, how sound should move, and in that some way affect the listener to its conceptual, shall we call it semiotic or informative value. What I think we all as sound artists deal with, the possibilities with sound as a spatio-temporal medium, and which always is it's vague. It has this vagueness or ambiguity. It's a spatio-temporal event that changes over time. I'm not sure if I, in that sense, replied to your question about sculpture in specific, but maybe give you some glimpses about
yes,
the
I think
importance
it did.
working carefully. Yeah.
Immersive perspectives that you grew up on.
Right.
If there are no more questions, I have a question to you, because I thought that, okay, there might be no question at all. So I prepared one to the audience. And that is, what do you say? What do we need artists dealing with authenticity or documentary practices at all? What can we gain by this? Sorry for closing with a super existential question.
Yeah, all for super existential questions. But yes, I see Anya raising hand, please.
Yes, hello, from Berlin. Thank you very much for this very very interesting and inspiring presentation. And of course, I think as you spoke about the artistic researcher, I think the most important part is in making things perceivable, phenomena, making them perceivable in a different aesthetic way than we are used to perceive them. So, for example, as you also mentioned, we are mostly confronted with statistics and visualizations, but we don't hear what this phenomenon actually sounds like. And I think there's a totally different emotional affection if you can listen to a phenomenon. So I'm also myself, I have to say, very interested in climate crisis, and I have the thesis, or my claim is that it became an international phenomenon to talk about it when it started to sound, and in the various ways. So, for example, climate activists, but also artists, of course. And so that's what I'm very interested in. And I also have a little question. Well, I hope I maybe could answer your question or contribute to an answer in my way. But I also would like to know about, you showed this one map, and I didn't understand, unfortunately, what it referred to, which project, because I'm especially interested in Greenland too, and you had a map where you showed a project from the upper North Atlantic, and that was also relating to Greenland and some island in Norway. Could you just explain me again what this was referring to and in what way you might be involved there?
So this was, I think, the current projects. I think all of the projects in some, except for Mare Balticum, deals with the Arctic in some way. But this was specifically dealing with Peter, the researcher who's been extensively measuring the transformation of the Gulf Stream, the speed of the Gulf Stream caused by the changes of the Arctic and how fast it is melting. So he's been specifically measuring this outside the Faroe Islands, so it's not the Greenland. But Nina's project is also she's also working at the Greenland, in Greenland.
Is she? Could you?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I see. And are you going? Yeah, but are you going to Greenland too, or?
Well, I hope so. we don't know anything right now due to the Corona situation, right? That's why I'm very honest when I say that we have no idea what happens. Svalbard, from where many of these vessels are some of the vessels that these expeditions are starting at the Svalbard, but also Greenland. It's been closed down for more than a year now. So it's super. There is no. It's almost closed for researchers and research expeditions. But she's also been explicitly working there. Yeah.
But she may go.
Yes.
She may go. She is allowed as a researcher to go there, but you are not as an artist.
I think it depends on how the honestly what happens at the Svalbard. It's a huge, super exclusive place, right? There's an enormous bunch of researchers who want to go there every year, and taking the fact that Corona has postponed so many research projects for it's more than a year now. It will be very hard to get there in the end, right now. But I hope, I'm optimistic. We need to be that, right?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else would like to jump and engage either with Åsa's question or, any further comments to what have been? Cici?
I want to just start with saying thank you so much, Åsa, for a fantastic presentation, and maybe to contribute to Anja's answer there. I think that all kinds of modes that are bringing attention to our environmental embeddedness is a good thing. So apologies, not Corona.
I'm not afraid.
I think all of them are good. I was thinking you were talking about, the politics of that particular setting of the soundscape that you're in. I was thinking about an old feminist concept by Adrienne Rich of politics of location. And she kind of coined this concept in the book Blood, Bread and Poetry as a move away from, Western feminisms trying to universalize a lot of women's experiences and trying to find, a particular kind of subjectivity that is, embedded, the embedded and embodied kind of subjectivity. And I was thinking about what you are doing as a kind of sound politics of location, bringing out that kind of, maybe not the subjectivity, but also the non-human subjectivity or the agency, the human and entangled human and more than human agency of that situation. I don't know if this is something that resonates with your thoughts.
I would say definitely, of course, definitely, and I think this very. I don't know this researcher, or maybe you can type it down or write it down, or but I use I'm very informed by Donna Haraway and the situated knowledges and partial perspective, and I imagine this goes hand in hand, right? That you're always situated and located. And when I talk about the non-autonomous, thank you very much, the non-autonomous artist subject, I think this is specifically what's intended and what we all as artists deal with. Thank you very much for your very qualified responses. It was really worth doing this presentation to get these these answers. because I think this is something as we as artists, we are struggling, and there is on the, like, it's always on the, specifically dealing with climate issues that has this kind of, shall we call it, documentational values, dealing with this, with all the, on the one hand, with one feet or foot in the documentary practice, and the other one totally different in a much more sensorial and perceptual kind of situation. And I think this does not always go hand in hand, and you have to do the choices and take the choices and the way this affects the outcome.
And I also see, if I can just jump in, you know, the very kind of, you know, really thinking with also not only Donna Haraway, but I mean Deleuze and Guattari that you had on the slide, and the kind of, you know, really Deleuze and Guattarian aesthetics with the aesthetics and actually like their take on art as the kind of, you know, field of knowledge production, you know, like the kind of legitimate in the same way as science and philosophy. And so I think that this is a really interesting point. The other thing is also again very Harawaian, you know, kind of like I think motive, but also very important point of actually switching from the sort of hegemony of vision as a kind of, you know, sensorial apparatus of also, you know, sort of mobilized in the kind of knowledge production. But I also thought that, you know, it's really interesting to think perhaps, I mean, about, you know, also the kind of, you know, you're focusing on non-human agencies, and especially, you know, with the kind of all this sort of passive sonar or, you know, like passive hearing as also a kind of form of amplification of those agencies in a sense. So yeah, I mean, so basically I think that, you know, it would be just really interesting to think, yeah, I mean, how, you know, how would the kind of concept of amplification work there? Because to some extent, I mean, yeah, I mean, it is like what you do is an amplification of certain, I mean, of certain landscapes, of a certain kind of, you know, milieu or specific situation. So yeah. You know, very scattered.
I think it's wonderful to hear this, and I don't have so much to say about it. I just hear what you say, and I can definitely agree. And it's a really the term amplification is super interesting in that sense. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm not sure whether it was Aquila or Jana who was first, but I mean, maybe first we can give the voice to the guests, so to Aquila and then to Jana. Is that okay? Okay, Aquila, go.
Thank you very much. I came to think, I'm located in Copenhagen. I can also see that there's more and more interest in the Arctic, also like within the environmental humanities and yeah, different kind of researchers. But I'm kind of curious, maybe not even to also to your research, but like more broadly to think when I think the whole like nature and like vast unpopulated space of different areas in the Arctic, it means different things depending if you're indigenous or not indigenous population, right? Because I guess for a lot of people, a glacier might be this place to explore, whereas I'm wondering if you are a Sami person, you might have a very different relationship. It's the same like Greenland, and you know, and I'm not even sure it's a question, but it kind of, I came to think of that for me as a non-indigenous person, it's also, it might be just land, right? But then when you get interested in other people's voices, then it also acquires a very different meaning. And I don't know if I have a question. It's just
no, I think this is a super relevant and crucial question, because of course I'm kind of of course it has a colonial connotation, the whole idea of coming with a helicopter, doing this research, etc., etc. And from my perspective, I think that I really respect the researchers and their perspectives and ambitions about actually providing information about the global climate situation. And at the same time, I can see this kind of very, shall we call it, white male colonial tradition of doing it. And I'm very aware of it, and I haven't come to a kind of a conclusion how I should deal with it, because from my perspective, this is another part of the project, and I'm not really there, but I've definitely been addressing it. I mean, the whole Sulitelma is named after the Sápmi people. So this is the whole area is part of Sápmi. So I think this is a parallel narrative, and how I should deal with this in this project that actually specifically focuses on this, shall we call it colonial? I think it's also, I think Nina would be very, very sad if this is recorded and now she hears this, because it's very easy to be either or. I think one have to be both, see the both perspectives.
The complexity of the situation.
Mm. But I haven't come to a conclusion or solution how to deal with that yet. Mm. Mm. But thank you for putting it on the table, or bring it on the table.
Jana, you had a question or comment.
I just make a brief comment because there's an interesting question from Hanna Husberg that I would like her to be able to address as well. No, I was just struck by the second time you played the sound from Sulitelma. You played it at the very beginning of your talk. It was the same snippet, right? And the second time, I was just struck how my entire listening has changed. In the beginning, I was kind of orienting and not really sure what I was listening to. And the second time, I was deeply thrown into that ice cold and very vivid environment of hearing this ice cracking, as I imagine it was, the ice making these noises. And I wasn't fully aware the first time I listened to it, which just brought me back to the importance, in a way, the self-evident importance of time and repetition in listening, but also what this contextual weaving and guiding and storying on different levels that you are performing now. I was just curious how you kind of take care of all that, also in a sonic and visual situation, like in the opera house, it's articulated in a certain way. On Gotland, it's articulated in another way. But then you have all these other layers. You don't have to answer that now, but maybe you could just go to Hanna's question, and you can weave them both into each other. Maybe, I don't know.
I think I'm going to make comment anyway, and I'm going to reveal a secret. Don't tell it to anyone. Okay, I think I'm going to work with audio visuals for the first time in 15 years. I think I think there is so much interesting in this project that brings the visual and the sound together, as if this was a super scope or anything. But when you're posing the question, because I think that and I think I wouldn't have done that if I wouldn't have been on the site and see how this different technology interact parallel within this specific environment. And I think this is the difference when you're there on site, see and experience how things are work, and it really see how they really provide different forms of informations. And the snippets, it's some films that will be thrown away because it has absolutely no value for the research for the scientific research project. But I don't think this was an answer, but maybe a response. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also reminded about something I've been circling around myself about the power of listening and sound to actually allow us to be in two places simultaneously. That I can be here and now, very distant from the actual source, of the sound and also be transported there in a simultaneous situation that actually connects me across distance without being immersed or the illusion of being there, but situated in both places at the time.
I think that you're saying something really, really, I mean, crucial here about it's about connecting. It's about and I think that maybe much more than the pure representation or about the pure search for what you said, the true fear. I would like to quote you, so you have to give me the correct quote, but it's more about raising the awareness to connect, and I think that's spot on what it is about.
Yeah, so very much of a kind of also ethical dimension. I will let myself just read quickly Hannah's question, because I think it's super important and it touches, all those kind of core issues at the intersection of art and science, like, in general speaking, like art science practices. So Hannah asks, I was curious about the reactions from scientists to the art outcome and in what way they react to your critical usage of sound, as it is also very pleasant and soothing. How can scientists incorporate your work in their own practice?
Well, I think in a very pragmatic way, most scientists that I've been dealing with, they put it on the CV, what you say, when you call it society at large, when you have outreach with the society at large. So at least you get 2 sentences in your CV that you worked with a scientist. That might be the more provocative question. Are you talking about I was curious about the reaction from scientists to outcome. I think they were, I mean, one of the persons that I've been working most with is my partner. So he's been totally involved in the process, and it would be more interesting to maybe ask him I don't know if he's also at KTH, but I think they also learned that there are other ways of going back to the idea of connectedness and raising awareness and making this a kind of experience than pure scientific reports and things like that. I think it depends very much about the personality, if it's a person who is interested in art or not. Some people find it weird. It's like everyone else, I'm guessing. There are some people who hate art and some people find it wonderful. So it's very diverse. Yeah.
Thank you so
much.
And
I think how they can incorporate the work in their own practice, I don't have the answer, and I'm not even sure it needs to be done now, if I should be honest, but that's another story.
Thank you so much, Åsa, and really big applause to you, and a big applause also to everyone who took part in the discussion. Thank you so much, dear all. Cecilia, would you like to say any final words?
I would just like to say that the connectivity continues then. So that just reminding you all of the next Posthumanities Hub seminar on the 22nd of April, and welcoming you all again warmly. And the final thing is, of course, a warm thank you to you, Åsa, for giving us this amazing presentation. Thank you all so much. Take care.
Thank you.